Yes, guys, and welcome back to another WM32 Football Podcast episode. This week, back again with Big Nelson. And if anybody remembers, a couple of weeks ago, me and Nelson, we went through our underrated 11 from the Premier League, English Premier League. And today, we're going to be running through our overrated Premier League 11. Going to be slightly different this time in comparison to our underrated 11, where in that episode, Nelson gave his team and I gave mine. We're going to go a bit more back and forth this time, hopefully get more dialogue going in that way, in that sense. So straight into it. I'm going to go and start off first with my goalkeepers. I've got 3 in mind here for overrated.
Okay, cool.
So I'll run through them all on the list. First one, this was going to shock perhaps a lot of people, but it's the Man City goalkeeper Edison. Now, my reason why I believe that he is slightly overrated is, okay, granted, he can ping a ball 60 yards and drop it on a sixpence. But actually, if you see a lot of goals that have been scored against Edison, a lot of them have been sort of through him and under his body. If I look at a lot of Heung-min Son's goals, especially against City in recent seasons, there's been a good couple that have gone sort of under Edison or sort of through him really. And obviously, as a goalkeeper, that's not really what you want to see, and especially one that is so highly regarded. Again, it's something that I think is lacking in Edison's game, but isn't really highlighted or spoken about enough. So yeah, that's sort of why he was in my thoughts with this one. The second one on my list is somebody, and I think a few people might think this is a bit harsh, but it's Eduard Mendy from Chelsea. I think he's seriously overrated. Like, as a goalkeeper, if I put myself in a player's situation, like, does he fill me with 100% confidence? Not really. I think he can be quite erratic as a goalkeeper. And I think, he came in and Chelsea went on a fantastic run. I think it was 16 games unbeaten or whatever this season in all competitions. But yeah, he just doesn't fill me with confidence. Like I said, I think he's erratic at times. I don't think his distribution, both with his feet and his hands, is that great. He just doesn't convince me. I don't think he's commanding enough in his area. Look, listen, he's a big lad, but he's sort of lanky, if that makes sense. Like, he's not very wide as a goalkeeper. I don't know if that's just a personal preference of mine that I perhaps like a bit more of a stockier goalkeeper. But certainly, yeah, Eduard Mendy's come into my thinking over the last few weeks or so, especially on Chelsea's run. The third one is a player that I have spoken about quite a lot in the last 18 months or so as being very, very overrated. And I said this to somebody a good while ago, and they were trying to convince me otherwise. The third goalkeeper I've gone for is Sheffield United goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale.
Okay.
Again, think he's massively overrated. Somebody was trying to say to me the other day that he can't help the fact that in terms of what's in front of him, both when he was at Bournemouth and even at Sheffield United. And I looked at it this way, that when he came into that Bournemouth side, I know they had a lot of injuries, but those players, that back line, had finished mid-table and quite comfortably mid-table for a good few seasons. He's come in and all of a sudden Bournemouth get relegated. Now, I'm not saying that it's all down to Aaron Ramsdale, but even at Sheffield United, they're struggling massively. Does he pull out saves, or is he a goalkeeper that in moments, like I say, will pull out a save or, something like that, that then you go, right, okay. And then it gives the rest of the team a bit of confidence, I've not seen that with Ramsdale at all. And I think there's actually a few goals that, from what I've seen, that have gone in where he should be doing a lot better. You know, there's talk of him, you know, being in the England reckoning and whatnot. Like, all I'm saying with that is I'm thankful we got Dean Henderson, because Hendo's probably going to take over that number 1 jersey at some point. But God help us if Aaron Ramsdale's in with a shout, because I don't know if he's overrated or I just think he's damn right awful. But there's an argument for both there. So Nelson, I might need your help then, goalkeeper wise, Edison, Mendy or Ramsdale. I am kind of leaning a little bit more towards Aaron Ramsdale.
Okay.
But
I think I can reveal to you now that I have one person, also the same person on that list. So 1 out of 3.
Okay.
So the other 2, I'm probably gonna you know, persuade you to go for them.
Okay.
Just because I can have this guy on my team, but I think because I know you've recently talked about Eduard Mendy, and I think the fact that he's come in and his run of games reminds me, okay, of a Mustafi that came to Arsenal, and Arsenal decided to go on a run of form, and I think they were like 20 games undefeated. He came in, stepped in, everyone was like, okay, this is a new guy, World Cup winner for Germany, but people forget that he played at right back, so that's not his number 1 spot. And then he came in, we went on an unbeaten run, and everyone thought, yep, we found our new defender to partner, Laurent Koscielny. Now we fast forward to 2021, and we all know the situation of Mustafi, who is, I wouldn't even say a scapegoat, rightly so, not even considered a baller in the general consensus.
He's put in the bin, isn't he, Mustafi?
He's just put in the bin. So that's why I feel like Mendy. Now, obviously, we can't. People might say it's harsh for me to compare Mendy and Mustafi. They're 2 different positions. But I think for the Chelsea fans to think that he's the new real deal without actually having his first full season, I think that's definitely, he's overrated. So I'd lean more towards him. I think Ramsdale, yes, Henderson was in goal last season, and I think that kind of shows why Sheffield United are in a much different position than they were when Henderson was in goal for them. But I think right now, I think it's not just him. I think the whole team as a whole, something weird is going on at the club. For them to have that high, but it does remind me of that Burnley season where they overachieved and nearly reached the European spots. But I'm for me personally, I'm going to go for Eduard Mendy. But it's your team. You going to...
Do you know what? I'm gonna go with Ramsdale, just because I think I've been a bit more vocal on him in, like I say, over the past sort of 18 months or so. But no, Mendy and Edison were definitely close, and were certainly in my thinking. Hence why they're on the list. But yeah, I think Aaron Ramsdale just tops it for me. I think with Mendy, I take your point on Chelsea fans sort of saying he's their saviour. And I guess this is going to lead on nicely to one of my players in my back 4, is that he didn't have much really in the way to sort of replace. So expectations were really low.
Exactly.
So it was almost that, well, if any goalkeeper that came in would take, because he's better than, in Chelsea's instance, Kepa. So yeah, but yeah, Ramsdale's getting my shout.
Cool.
So Nelson, I'm guessing then from you've teed it up quite nicely, because you spoke about Ramsdale and Mendy, but you did say that one goalkeeper out of my 3 was on the list. So I'm guessing then that donning the gloves for your overrated Premier League 11 is Edison.
Yes, it's going to be Edison da Silva, whatever his name is, the way Brazilians have their surname, whatever it is. Yeah, Edison's my keeper. I think you've already justified why he's an overrated keeper. I think when he first came, a lot of people were astonished as to, I do rate his ball playing ability as a keeper, but obviously nowadays the game has changed where everyone needs that. But I think if you had to rank your goalkeepers right now in world football, would he even be in the top 10? I don't think so. Another person that I actually considered, which would be a shock to many, was Crystal Palace keeper Jack Butland. Now, Jack Butland, the reason I put him in there or considered him was simply because he was tipped for a successful career. Now, I wouldn't say his career isn't successful today. He's in the Premier League. He's playing for Crystal Palace. He's their number one keeper. But I think his potential was like, we're talking, I remember when he first came out of the Birmingham squad, played well, and then even joined, obviously, then he joined Stoke, went on loan to Barnsley a bit, went to Leeds, well, even Derby as well. And then he played for Stoke in the Premier League. And I think he pulled a string of good performances. And you're expecting, I think the expectation for him was to make that jump to even join a top 6 club. I'm looking now here on Transfermarkt. I've got my data over here. Transfermarkt. He's only made 9 appearances for the England squad. I expected more than that from him. So I think for me, he was highly overrated, especially when he first burst onto the scene. I don't know if you think that's a good kind of way to justify him.
That's an interesting one because I'm fully with you. I think Butland's ceiling at one point was ridiculous. Like,
yeah,
I think he was definitely challenging for that England number 1 spot at the time of sort of him coming through and sort of establishing himself. I think what killed Jack Butland, and I guess this person has probably killed quite a few people's careers, in his time. QPR fans will know about this as well. Mark Hughes, because that season that Hughes' last season at Stoke, especially, I think killed Jack Butland. Obviously, Stoke ended up going down. Hughes getting the sack, but then in the Championship, then Stoke obviously in there, expected to come back up. They finally got the man that they initially wanted when Hughes got sacked in Gary Rowett. Recruited. You would look at it on paper and go, they didn't recruit too bad. I think what they suffered, though, majorly was a massive hangover from the Premier League. But there was always talk of Butland moving. When you looked at that Stoke squad going down, yes, you had the likes of Shaqiri, you had Muniesa, Bojan, Martins Indy, Kevin Vimmer, players like that were on decent money. But you almost thought, like, right, yeah, I was guilty of it myself at one point. Would I have had Jack Butland as a Tottenham fan? Would I have had him in perhaps as a goalkeeper to challenge Hugo Lloris? 100% at that point. Because I think if that signing was made for a Premier League club, you wouldn't really be too displeased because you knew that he had, there was quality there. It was probably just a case of him having a bad season. But then, the more Stoke kind of fell away, his performances started getting questioned a lot more, and whatnot. So then I think his career's just nosedived. I know he's at Palace now, fighting for that jersey with Vicente Guaita.
Exactly. So you've even got that situation.
Yeah, I think he's probably just one of those players, in my view, that has burst onto the scene at the ceiling. The world was his oyster, everything like that, and then it's just he sort of plateaued for a little bit and then sort of nosedived pretty hard in the last sort of couple of years. So yeah, that's my view on Jack Butland anyway. But
he's still 27 years of age, so we know goalkeepers have that longevity in their careers, just like defenders. So he has an opportunity to revive it. So I'm not ruling that out. But he was someone that I just considered to a small extent. But I'm going to stick with Edison. Edison's my goalkeeper for my squad.
Decent start. Yeah, moving on then to, as I mentioned before, I'm going to play with a back 4. I've gone 4-3-3 once again. Could easily be a 4-2-3-1 this. But the player who is getting my right back slot is actually a player from Tottenham. It's not the one that you're thinking of, or I hope not anyway. It's Matt Doherty at right back. So when I said before about Chelsea signing Eduard Mendy because brilliant, it's not Kepa, Tottenham had exactly the same situation and scenario when Doherty come in. It was like, brilliant, we've signed a right back that's not Serge Aurier, because Serge Aurier, I think any Spurs fan will tell you, was probably one of the first players to be shown the door at this transfer window. If our Spurs fans were all in charge at Tottenham, he'd be the first player that we'd get rid of. But Doherty showed promise at Wolves, and you think, okay, he was bombing up and down that line, chipped in with a few goals and everything like that. I'm yet to see it. I'm sorry, I'm yet to see it in a Spurs shirt. He's absolutely awful. He's been awful every time he has played. I know that the perhaps different nature of styles here, because Nuno, as we know at Wolves, is very possession based. Likes his teams to dominate the ball, and will play, through the pitch or distribute the ball out wide. But they'll play through, teams. Play with back three a lot of the time when Doherty was there at Wolves. Obviously, coming into Tottenham, he's playing with the back four a lot of the time. But still, I think when he's played, he's had that license to get forward. I think Jose's done quite well in terms of picking his games for him to play. And usually, because we know Doherty loves to bomb forward, Jose would often pick Ben Davis at left back to almost be that security. So then we still have the back three in there. But honestly, I don't know who is in charge of transfers at Wolves, but I want to give him a medal, honestly, because, all right, 15 million in today's market's nothing, but to be able to, shift a player that, Wolves fans, I spoke to a couple of them when he left, they wasn't overly fussed that he left. It was like, oh, he's left, all right. So they brought in Nelson Semedo, who's definitely up for debate at the moment. That's for sure. But yeah, I'm yet to see it from Matt Doherty in a Spurs shirt, I must admit. I don't know where the kind of hype is with him. His crosses, mate. I'm sorry, he couldn't deliver a pizza. I mean, he's been awful. Like, defensively, gets caught out so many times, as well. But having said that, Matt Doherty coming in at Tottenham has got the best out of Serge Aurier, because Serge Aurier's turned his Tottenham career around pretty much. I know he got a lot of stick, Aurier, for giving away the penalty against Leicester, but even a couple of my friends were telling me, Aurier proving that he's not good enough once again, and it's like, well, hold on a minute, it's a bit harsh because he's had a very good season. I know Aurier didn't set his standards too high, because again, he's not the greatest right back in the world, but I think, and also to come back off the back of finding out the tragic news about his brother passing away, and then to put in the level of performances that he has since that incident, I think Aurier's turned, like I say, he's turned his Tottenham career around. And we're almost saying for the big games, it was like, no, we can't play Aurier, like we can't do it. So even against United earlier on the season, we were thinking, oh God, here we go, Serge Aurier's playing at right back, this will be fun. But now it's almost like, no, Serge sort of has to play, because Doherty hasn't shown anything. And I get that, for a player coming into a new dressing room, a new environment, especially, where you've been somewhere for so long, it does take time to settle in perhaps and adapt. But, Doherty's played in the Premier League. Like, he shouldn't really need too much time to adapt. The only thing he's kind of adapting his game is choosing his moments when to bomb forward, as opposed to just going and flying forward all the time. So yeah, Matt Doherty for me at right back. Who's getting your nod in your first of your defenders?
It's an interesting one. I've gone for a back three.
Okay.
Instead of a back four. That was a good consideration for Michael Doherty. I don't know why he didn't come up in my initial list of overrated players before I drafted my starting 11. But this is somebody I believe hasn't fulfilled his time in the Premier League. and that's Michael Keane. Michael Keane is someone that I've seen, and I think you even mentioned how, like, I think in your underrated XI, you put Ben Mee in your centre-back spot.
Yes.
And we mentioned how he's not considered because his centre-back partners have been players that have essentially moved on to better clubs in his time at Burnley. And Michael Keane was one of them. Now, Michael Keane was a very good player at Burnley. Like, we know Burnley's defence was astute, like solid, old school, physical. And, you know, he's made the jump up to Everton. And I think when he was at Burnley, he got a few England caps as a result of his performances. I'm not too sure, but all I know is since he's made the jump to Everton, for somebody who's had that Premier League experience at Burnley and not be able to reproduce it at Everton, I think is quite disappointing. I think especially when he got the England call-up, I think that's when people started to consider him and start to rate him. But I think and this is what we talked about earlier, about either he's overrated or is just not a good player at all. Like, and that's a shame because it's similar to like my consideration for Jack Butland in terms of his ceiling. Now, I'm not saying Michael Keane's ceiling was ridiculously, we're talking God's heavens, but I just don't think he's cut out. I think he's below standard. That's why he made my squad. I think Yerry Mina makes him look very good. I think his centre-back partner in Mina does, I think, more of the gritty work. People may, want to counter my opinion and kind of argue it, but I don't see enough in Michael Keane. And I think he's lucky enough to actually get the move to Everton. That's my opinion. But that's somebody that I thought, and I saw your face like, oh, okay, Michael Keane. So I don't know if you had any opinions on Keane himself.
Well, listen, I have been a big fan of Michael Keane. I really like him. I guess he's still probably, had nightmares of the time where Will Grigg and Benik Afobe saw him a new one at Stadium MK when MK Dons beat Man United 4-0. And for anybody that wants to say that was a United reserve side, you tell me a reserve side that's got 8 full internationals in it, in the starting 11 against the League One side, and whatnot. Saw him at Burnley. I thought he was fantastic. I actually thought he would probably, when I was watching him at Burnley and the way that he played, I wouldn't say he was different to the centre halves that they had, but he was one that was more comfortable in terms of bringing the ball out from the back.
Exactly.
And bit in that build phase and starting those attacks. I guess, when he went to Everton, I think he struggled massively with the price tag and kind of living up to it. I know it's not his fault that he's gone for 30 million. But I was thinking at the time at Burnley, he's going to play a lot for England. And obviously that hasn't been the case. Like I was of the opinion that it would probably be him and John Stones, as it 2 England centre halves. But they are 2 similar defenders in the fact they both like to get on the ball. They both like to start attacks. They're decent defensively, in terms of those minimal requirements as a defender. But yeah, I kind of looking at it, Yerry Mina does do the more head it, kick it, if you like, and that's a bit of a disservice to Yerry Mina there, but he does do a lot more of the gritty kind of stuff. But then I think it's good that Everton, I guess, at the minute have found that balance of having, Mina the more dominant one and Keane that perhaps isn't as dominant. But then you got to think when he did go to Everton, he was playing alongside Ashley Williams, who was on the way down as a defender at that time.
That's true. Good point.
So
good point.
Yeah, I think he had a lot of sort of aging players in and around him when he first went. Like I say, Ashley Williams. I think Leighton Baines was playing left back. I don't think Seamus Coleman played too much at right back. So if you're playing alongside Cuco Martina, then you're bound to get exposed a few times. But no, I'm a big fan of Michael Keane, but interesting choice, Nelson. Interesting choice.
That's just my take. I think you'll like my next two though, but we'll go back to your other centre back pairing.
Okay, I got two considerations for my next centre half. The first one is kind of the nation fell in love with him at Russia at the World Cup. Slabhead himself, Harry Maguire. Yeah, although thinking about it, I've then thrown this player in. Now, this latest player was a very late call-up, I must admit, to the Overrated Premier League 11. It's a player who this season has been completely frozen out. Elsa vibes on this one. Antonio Rudiger is the second one. I'm trying to weigh this one up because I'm trying to weigh up if Maguire is massively overrated or he is just what he is, which isn't that great. I think with Maguire, listen, he's had a fantastic rise, if you like, to the top. Coming through from Sheffield United, getting a move to Hull. We went on loan to Wigan at one point. Then after that, obviously gets his move to Leicester after Hull were relegated. Does well at Leicester and then gets his move to United. But the thing that gets me is when people say about Maguire being this leader and this presence. Nonsense. Quote Roy Keane, nonsense. Right? I've never seen it. I don't know if it's because he's just an imposing figure in the back line, but everybody talks about him being a leader and everything like that. Mate, he couldn't organise a bus queue, especially during COVID. Like, all right, he brings the ball out from the back and stuff like that. But, I remember, I think it was Jamie Redknapp saying to Van der Vaart about Maguire, saying that he's this, he's that. And Van der Vaart shooting Redknapp down, saying, listen, I could find you 50 of those that play Sunday morning in Holland. Van der Vaart's been very vocal on his views on Harry Maguire as well. I don't think he rates him too much either. Maguire's in my thoughts because, again, I don't sort of see the hype with him. I don't know if his performances recently, when United have a wobble, he's one of the first to get slated. He's overrated. He ain't all this. He ain't all that. I think there is a bit more to him than that. I don't think he's a shouter, a talker, but I don't see him being an organizer either. So where's this leadership qualities coming from? Which, I know a lot of people have been going quiet on those lately. I wonder why. As I said, they're probably never there in the first place. Maguire. And with Rudiger, there was talk of him going to Barcelona in the summer. I don't know where that come from. Genuinely. It was either paper talk or something like that. Like, I've never really sort of seen it with him. Like with Rudiger, I always think that, if I'm a tall and, sort of battle axe, like old school number 9 centre forward, like an Andy Carroll or Diego Costa, Giroud, I'd love to play against Rudiger. Like, I wouldn't have a problem because I think you can sort of get at him and almost bully him a little bit. But yeah, I don't sort of see what other people see with Rudiger. And he's been completely frozen out once again by Chelsea this season. I know they've brought in Thiago Silva, but if you're Antonio Rudiger, experienced sort of senior defender, why are you not getting the minutes alongside Thiago Silva if Thiago Silva is your number one centre half? Going to be difficult. So Nels, give us some help, please.
I think that call-up of Rudiger is a really good one because even with Chelsea making the top 4 last season and Lampard having to deal with the squad that he had to, I don't know how people even considered Rudiger to be a good defender. I just don't think it's hard to even put words to describe, even if he's a good defender or not. And like, don't forget, he's a full German international as well. Like in that respect, so he sometimes still gets the call up. Don't know why. I don't know what German managers are smoking, but like, I just don't think he's competent enough as a defender. The only reason I'm not saying Mr. Slobhead, is because I've also considered him too.
Okay.
Like he's in my team, and I don't even want to go forth of what I want to say about him. But yeah, I think Rudiger's a really intriguing selection, just because, like you said, Thiago Silva's come in and shunned him out of the starting 11. And you can say obviously Chelsea not in a good run of form lately, but some of the unbeaten run you could credit was, due to the centre-back pairing of Thiago Silva and Kurt Zouma, who somehow has just slowly been, like he was another one that I was considering. But no, I think Rudiger's a good late call-up.
I think as well, it's sort of leaning towards Rudiger, because if he's almost like, well, why did he get the late call-up kind of thing, So... I'm happy for Rudiger to go into my back line, because like I say, I've never really sort of seen it. I always thought, I think his kind of name goes before his ability, and it's almost that if you were to sign Antonio Rudiger, you're signing the name rather than the actual player, if that makes any sense. So yeah, no, I'm happy to put Rudiger in. So then Nelson, second centre half for you out of your back three. Who have you gone for, or who's in your line of thinking?
Well, I'm just going to go straight forward and say Harry Maguire. Like, I don't even have to consider it. Like, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. Whoever was in charge of United's dealings with the transfer of Harry Maguire, either they were held at gunpoint, or I don't know, like they just decided they were gonna, I don't know. Because I'm sure Leicester officials probably held them at gunpoint and said, yeah, you're giving us 80 million right now, or you're getting nothing. And they thought, yeah, he's worth that much. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. Like you said, he's not really much of a leader. I mean, the fact his scandal that he had on holiday proves that. Like as much as, we talk about footballers being good role models, good professionals, for him to do that, I think it was right for Gareth Southgate. And the thing is, I think they were even quite lenient on him, because I think he was only kicked out for one of the England qualifying games and then came straight back in. So I don't think, oh my gosh, I can't even start, because he's one half, because I've got another centre back left, so he's one half of my Tweedledum. There's Tweedledee, like his other mate is coming. So like, I'm just gonna put Harry Maguire now. I'm gonna leave it at that. Otherwise, I could go on.
Straight in Harry Maguire. Right. So now it's my second centre half. Full England international, by the way. Struggling to work this one out. Hence probably why he's in this overrated 11. And that is Tyrone Mings.
Ah, yes.
I've been quite vocal on Tyrone Mings recently, or for quite a while, especially sort of since he moved to Aston Villa. So again, probably a good 18 months. I think he's massively overrated. I think the only reason he's got to where he has on an international stage is because of his size, because he's a big lad, and the fact he's left-footed. That's literally it. If anybody wants to kind of wants me to give a moment that sums up Tyrone Mings as a centre-half, watch him against Palace. And Wilfried Zaha has done an absolute job on him, basically, to get him sent off. And everybody will be like, yeah, but you shouldn't really be promoting that. But sometimes as a pro and in professional football, you play on certain things. So I think his second yellow in that game, especially Tyrone Mings, was stupid. What is it like? Okay, Zaha's knocked the ball past him. Like, just accept that he's gone. Don't try and hold him or whatever. But the thing is as well, on the pitch, like where that incident happened, in and around the centre circle. Zaha's not really going anywhere.
He's not going anywhere. Yeah, he's
not.
What,
like, seriously, what was the point? So yeah, like I say, I think Tyrone Mings has sort of got to where he is, not because of his ability, because he is a decent, player. Obviously came to prominence at Ipswich as a left back, moved to Bournemouth, struggled with an injury pretty much straight away that kept him out for ages. Then came back into the side and played centre half. I think he had a nightmare on his debut, I think, against Hull, where I think Bournemouth lost 4-0 and Tyrone Mings got an own goal in that game. I remember it. He had an absolute horror show that day. Then obviously, went to Villa, rejuvenated their backline in the Championship. But yeah, since coming to the Premier League, I think he's been, as a centre forward, you can get at him, or as a forward, you can get at him. I don't think he's necessarily quick. I think he gets caught out a little bit on the turn as well, which is probably the reason why he brought down Zaha on the halfway line. But yeah, I think Tyrone Mings for me, 100% overrated. He's just big and left-footed, and it's like, oh, we'll have him because, with the way England play, sometimes they play with a back three, so you sort of need that balance of a left-footed centre half. And I think that's sort of how he's crept in to England reckoning. So yeah, I think if I'm a young English centre half now, and especially if I'm left-footed, I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm in, because my only, the only competition that I've got is Tyrone Mings, and I'd probably back myself to get ahead of of him. So yeah, Tyrone Mings for me.
Cool. Straight in with that. Straight in. I remember you mentioned him as well. And this is funny because I put him in my underrated XI from last week's episode. Yeah. Sorry, 2 weeks ago. So cool. So I've got my last centre back to fill in my back three. Yeah. I mentioned Tweedledum being Harry Maguire.
Yes.
So I've got Tweedledee, or you could say Dumb and Dumber, in Victor Lindelof. Like, I just don't think that, like, you're meant to compliment your centre back, and these two compliment themselves in the fact that they're bad. Like, they are just bad. And United, I don't know how they're second in the table, because this season is definitely an anomaly. Like, there's no way that if United win the league, then it's a weird, like, we're in weird times. Like, I don't know what his strengths are as a defender. He's just as bad as Harry. Like, the only competent centre back at United I give credit to is probably Eric Bailly, but like, at one point I even questioned, like, should I just put my whole back three of United defenders? Because, like, United's form, we know they're second in the table, but the manner in which they lose their games, especially, yes, I think it's the manner in which they lose their games. Like, we could obviously go back, you being a Spurs fan, that 6-1 demolition is a perfect example of them just being not even switched off, just not being interested in defending at all, like being sliced open. And we're talking, I remember that Spurs goal post-pandemic, I think Stevie Burnwine, he ran past Maguire. I think Lindelof was his partner, and I just don't remember like how there was no cover for, like. So I think that they both complement each other and just being bad. So I've put them in my centre back to fill in my centre back. So my back three consists of Michael Keane, Victor Lindelof, and Harry Maguire. So I don't know if you're going to have any arguments for me not putting him in there, but I think you agree that
I'm agreeing with you, because Lindelof was a very, very late consideration for myself. And so was Eric Bailly. Everybody, I know he's had a couple of good games lately, Bailly, but United fans thinking he's a saviour. Like, come on, do me a favour. He's just unreliable as well. He is so rash. Like, he's up there with David Luiz in terms of how rash he is as a centre half, and that takes some doing, because David Luiz is, as you know, being an Arsenal fan, he's in a world of his own. So yeah, again, I don't sort of see it with Bailly either. And you mentioned that 6-1. Lindelof again all over the place. yeah, I think that back three is definitely overrated. Michael Keane is probably the only one that I'm sort of questioning, but that's just me. But yeah, definitely the other two. Yeah, 100% overrated for sure. I'm with you on that. So Nelson, the left back then for my back four for this overrated 11. Been a bit of a naughty boy recently. Breaking COVID guidelines and protocols. So for anybody out there, please make sure you do stick to the rules. The quicker or the more you do it, obviously the quicker we hopefully get back to some sense of normality, and hopefully beat this disease. It's, this particular player loves big bum Latinas as well. It's probably the biggest cheerleader I think the Premier League has ever seen in Benjamin Mendy. This guy. What I don't know what Pep saw for Tiki Bugarestein to sanction a £50 million deal to sign Benjamin Mendy, but he is awful, like straight up awful. So over, like I say, probably one of the biggest cheerleaders the Premier League's ever seen. Gets turned inside out on a regular basis. Adama Traore must lick his lips if he's up against Benjamin Mendy, because he just knows he's got him on toast, every time. But yeah, I just don't see it. Everybody talks about, oh yeah, he's great, he can get up and down the pitch, and things like that. So, what about his job, which is to actually defend? He can't even do that.
No,
and he can't do that well. He's great going forward, but ultimately as a defender, first and foremost, your job is to defend. So I think that's why Wan-Bissaka's almost got to where he is for his defensive strengths, but everybody slates him because he's not that great going forward. But I'd rather my fullback be able to defend first and then go and attack. Than always being in that final third and not being able to get back. But yeah, Mendy for me 100% overrated. Don't see it. Never really saw it with him. So yeah, Benjamin Mendy for me.
Cool. I think that your back line is pretty nice there in terms of overratedness. So yeah. I can't even start on him. Like, I initially thought that was a very good move that Guardiola made when he initially signed him, because I think we all talk about one of the most underrated sides in the last decade was that Monaco side that went to the semi-finals of Champions League. We're talking ballers, and obviously they also bought Bernardo Silva, who we know. But yeah, Mendy, he was, I wouldn't say unorthodox, but he was different in terms of now. Then again, Wes, I can't lie. The way you've justified him makes me think if he was ever even a good fullback in the first place. Because I think that Monaco side was just full of attacking flair, and he contributed to that, especially with his whipping crosses from the wing. I think his delivery is very good. So, and obviously he brings that athleticism to that left back role. But thinking about that Monaco side, I'm interested to see how much they even conceded as a back line. But yeah, I thought initially it was a good signing that City signed him. But then he had that injury, which I think kept him out for that entire season. They went on to win 100 points. And he actually started the season very well. And you think, and I remember because I remember working at City, that people were talking about how good he was and how highly they rated him. And they've never had a left back like him before at their club. So they were expecting really good things, especially when he was coming back. But since he's come back, wow. Like you said, biggest cheerleader. A fan of the Ochi Bob, the old good old dog. But yeah, I think that's that's a nice way to end your back line with Benjamin Mendy. I don't think he's done very well his time at City. He's won so many medals and has been able to do that at City while sitting eating a pizza at home. I don't know how he's done it. Like it's crazy.
And even on an international level as well, like the guys won the World Cup, he barely played. Like
barely played.
Because Lucas Hernandez, who by trade is a centre half, got hoisted out at left back ahead of Benjamin Mendy, like for France.
And did the job.
Ridiculous. So yeah, that's my back four: Doherty, Rudiger, Mings, and Mendy.
Cool.
So Nelson, you might as well go onto your wing backs before I move into my midfield three.
Cool.
So who's on the right hand side to begin with?
I'll start with my right wing back. I had no hesitation to put this person in because I'm an Arsenal fan, but at the same time, I just think this person has been very overrated. And we're talking by Arsenal fans. Like, Arsenal fans have overrated him for a long time. So we're not going on the basis of the general population overrating him. Arsenal fans have put this guy up there as the next heir to Lauren. Like, I don't even know. Like not even the next heir to Lauren. I just thought we've overrated him too much. I think you know I'm going with this. And it's Ainsley Maitland-Niles. I think Maitland-Niles is very overrated as a player. I think he's just average Premier League player. And I wasn't even surprised when Wolves came in for him because I felt as though, he wasn't getting into the squad. He kept breaking through, having a good run of form for like 10, 15 games, and then he would suddenly be dropped and wouldn't be able to pick up form. Same happened when Arteta stepped in. When Arteta stepped in, Arteta didn't really consider him as a first choice fullback. We all know he deploys as a centre mid by trade. We know he's a centre mid, and he's come out in an interview to say that, I'm a centre mid. I don't really enjoy playing fullback. And I feel sorry for him to an extent in terms of the fact that, we've had to use him on those wings as a fullback, and he hasn't actually had the opportunity to showcase his ability in centre mid. All Arsenal fans always hold to that one game. We lost to United, but apparently he had Paul Pogba in his pocket for the duration of 90 minutes. I'll never forget that game. Everyone just said, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, yeah. So I think he's overrated, Wes. I think one of his traits that people say is a strength is his composure on the ball. But I've also told many people that composure is also his weakness because his composure makes him too laid back. And I think it makes him really sluggish in terms of trying to zip the ball quick, especially the style of football that the manager wants to play. And I think him just being laid back, I think he's too laid back. I think he's on a high too much. And I just think sometimes he's in his own wavelength, his own area code, wherever it is. And he's all right as a defender. I'm just gonna leave it all right. He's going forward in terms of him being in that right back role. He can't produce good crosses as well. I've noticed his crossing ability has been very bad. We're talking getting into the final third. If you've got a young boy like Bukayo Saka who's only 19 and his decision making is let me not go world class, but it's up there and he's still 19 and there's still room for improvement. Ainsley's now 23 years old. I think us rating him, saying that he's still a young prospect. He's 23 years old. Once you go over 21, I'm sorry, you're not considered young prospect. Just get out. So I put him as my right wing back. I don't think you have any complaints, even though I know you're a Spurs fan, but yeah, I just think he's overrated. Very overrated.
Yeah, interesting one. Obviously, as you mentioned there, by trade, a central midfield player, but has had to do a job, out and fullback, wing back, sort of roles. I guess his versatility is a plus, but then I think you get players that have versatility, but then it gets used too much.
Yeah.
I look back to Phil Jones at Man United when he first went in. It was, he came as a centre half or a central midfield player, from Blackburn, but it was almost that he plugs a gap. So it's like we need a right back. Oh, Phil Jones will play there. We need a centre half today, right? Oh, we got Phil Jones. We need a holding midfielder. Phil Jones, centre mid. Phil Jones can do that. So I think Maitland-Niles sort of coming out and saying that he wants to play centre mid. Okay, I can see what he's trying to do in sense of right, I know where I see my future. His downside is he's never been established enough for me in that Arsenal squad, in that Arsenal team, to come out and be like, right, this is where I want to play now.
Yeah.
You know, we know Theo Walcott did something similar, but Walcott, again, similarly, was in and out of the Arsenal side. When he done it, he had a spell up top through the middle, and then, you know, as quickly as that happened, he was hoisted back out on the right again, Theo Walcott. I know in recent times, Eric Dyer's had that sort of decision to make, you know, am I centre half, am I holding midfielder? Dyer's come out and said that he sees himself as a centre back. You know, but Dyer's sort of been in that Tottenham squad and in that Tottenham team, you know, he's established enough that he can do that. I think timing has helped Eric Dyer as well, in the sense that, you know, we perhaps needed a centre half, and, you know, him coming out and saying that he sees himself as a centre back's probably saved Tottenham a few quid. So yeah, Maitland-Niles, always an interesting one with me. Do I see him as an England player? Probably not. Like, I always look at international football as like, you know, it should be the best. Yeah, the pinnacle.
Yeah.
And do I see Maitland-Niles as one of those types of players? No, probably a good club player. But yeah, he seems to be one of those that fills gaps. He's a bit of a plug in the sense that he'll fill a gap for you in the squad. I guess you do need those players, but if you are going to have one of those, they've got to be, you know, consistent in the sense that there'll be at least a 7 out of 10 for you in there. Right now, it's actually a right wing back. Moving on to the left, who have you gone for?
This one is gonna irk a few people, I think, because he still has room for improvement. I think he still has age on his side. Let me just quickly check how old he is. Yeah, he has age on. Definitely has age on his side to change my opinion. But right now, I think he's highly overrated, and that's Callum Hudson-Odoi.
Oh,
people are gonna be like, why would you do that to your brother? Like, I don't care. Like, I think when he burst onto the scene, and yes, I think as English spectators, we have I don't know how to describe it. We have a way of hyping up many of our youngsters that come through and thinking that the next big thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at Callum Hudson-Odoi, I think he burst onto the scene as a Chelsea winger. He's versatile in the sense that he could play, you know, either on the left or on the right. We know his natural ability and what he can do as a winger, but I mean, he hasn't been able to establish himself, just like a Bukayo Saka has done now at Arsenal. Like, you could, like, he was, even though he came on against Newcastle in the FA Cup win on the weekend, initially Saka was seen as someone to rest, an important player to rest at the age of 19 years. Callum is 20, and I don't think Lampard sees him as someone who can do it on a consistent basis. And I think that's why he's been in and out of the squad. If you look at his English, I think right now I can see he made his debut for England in 2019 March. He's only got 3 caps. If you look at his English compatriots who also play on the wing who are of similar age, you've got Jaden Sancho, who did a ridiculous season last year, and he's now reaping the rewards of that. So I think if you like, I just don't think he's applied himself mentally to really like seize on his potential, because we know his potential is ridiculous. That's why I say age is on his side. But right now, I think when he burst into the scene, Chelsea fans overrated him. I personally think, because I remember when he dirtied up Hector Bellerin, and I was like, okay, cool. And he came on, made a few good performances for the Chelsea squad, and everyone said, okay, you got to start this young kid. Right now, the Chelsea side needs a bit of youth and a bit of urgency, a bit of creativity. He did that, but I think it's the fact that he hasn't been able to establish himself. For me right now, I was expecting, well, this is me based on my expectations. I was thinking already a starter for Chelsea, and we're talking somebody who would have made maybe 15 England caps by now. He's only got 3. I expected a lot from him based on the hype and how players overrate him. You've even got Christian Pulisic now, who's joined the club, and he's now had to. That's basically him fighting for that winger spot. You've got Hakim Ziyech, Timo Werner that can play on the wing. So where does he actually fit in that Chelsea squad? Like it's worrying. But like I said, he's got age on his side, so I'll give him the benefit of that on that front. But right now, I think he's overrated. People are gonna be like, this guy's stupid, but I feel like I'm sticking with Hudson-Odoi for now. I want to hear your thoughts on it because I know that I probably shocked you with that choice, like in terms of.
Yeah, it's a massive shock. Listening to your rationale, bursting onto the scene, interesting because I don't think that's actually happened.
I'm just going off the Chelsea fans.
Yeah, I remember the sort of year where you would class that as his breakthrough year in the sense that he made a few appearances. I remember one against Spurs in the League Cup semi-final at Wembley. He did have Danny Rose on toast pretty much that whole evening. So yeah, but then, you know, as you said, it's like, okay, he's done it in that game, but is that game one where you go, he's burst onto the scene? Probably not. You know, he needed to sort of come in on a consistent basis and start playing a bit more. I get that perhaps under Sarri it wasn't the best time at Chelsea, but I think he come out of that with some form of credit. I know obviously in that January his contract was up, a lot of talk of him going to Bayern Munich, even putting a transfer request, all of that.
Yeah, even that.
You know, but listen, he got his big contract that he wanted, but it was like, I remember that sort of saga and I'm thinking, hold on a minute, you were 18, you've played 5 minutes for Chelsea and all of a sudden you want 100 grand a week. Like, it was almost that for me. It was like, who are you to be demanding that kind of thing?
Exactly.
So yeah, I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I guess that I'm leaning to it. Like, yeah, you're right, you're right. But yeah, I do think he's a decent player. I think there's an England player potentially there, as you said, age is on his side, but he's got a lot of competition in his way. He's got Sancho, he's got Rashford that plays out wide. Raheem Sterling is still fairly young. You know, you got a couple of you've got Greenwood, you've got Dwight McNeil, who I mentioned in our underrated 11.
Yeah, exactly. Dwight McNeil.
You know, you've got the lad at Bayern, Jamal.
Salia. Yeah,
he's doing bits at the minute. So
Saka, you got people. Yeah. So
you know, his pathway is kind of blocked. So he might have to look at look at the grandparents, see if that dual nationality, and get onto that pretty sharpish. I think Hudson-Odoi. So yeah, that's an interesting one. Like you say, a definite shock to the system. Right then, my first central midfield player.
Okay.
I've got two candidates for this.
Okay.
The first one is Rodri at Manchester City. And the second one is Declan Rice.
Oh, I did not expect Declan Rice.
So let me explain. Rodri was supposed to come in and be this the next holding midfielder for Manchester City, like the successor to Fernandinho. No chance. I'm not having it. He doesn't sense danger enough, Rodri. I remember the Spurs City game last year, the 2-0, Bergman's debut, and Ndombele's just sent him for a hot dog. But the thing was, Ndombele done it from a standing position, and I was just there like, oh my god! And then all of a sudden, you know, I think Spurs had a chance, and we were in. But yeah, I don't see it with Rodri. He's quite an imposing figure. Like, he's a big lad, but I don't think he uses it anywhere near enough. And I think I don't think it was any coincidence. I know City had a lot of defensive injuries last year, and Fernandinho was at centre half. But at the same time, you could see why City were getting overrun in midfield a lot last season. You know, like I say, didn't spot danger, didn't plug those gaps anywhere near enough. Didn't have that nasty streak, that nasty side in him like Fernandinho does, because Fernandinho can get away with about 10 tackles before he even gets spoken to by a referee. So yeah, that's why Rodri's in there. I don't think listen, when you're playing at a side like City, you're going to have the ball, but I don't think he makes enough telling passes. I think he just sort of goes sideways and backwards a lot. Doesn't really do a lot with the ball, and those kind of things. So I don't think he uses the ball well enough for me to warrant even potentially being a linchpin or a mainstay in that Manchester City side.
Yeah.
And again, I think this season, is there a coincidence that if Rodri's played, a lot of the time they've had to play Fernandinho next to him?
Yeah.
Just exploring that.
Weird.
Now, Declan Rice. Now, this was the one that shocked you. Probably going to shock a lot of fans. And I'm not just putting him in here because he's a West Ham player and I'm a Tottenham fan. But the West Ham team, right, as a whole, it's all right. Like, it's not the greatest by any stretch of the imagination. And for me, Declan Rice screams best of a bad bunch.
I see.
Like, okay, yeah, he looks good at West Ham, but then he hasn't got much around him at West Ham, so he could probably look good. I know it can be. I know it can be a task at times to be the main man in a struggling side. I get that, but at the same time, like, sort of everything kind of. I know everything goes through him, so he gets a lot more touches on the ball. He can, distribute it. But then I think if I watch him sometimes, I think his distribution's awful. Like, he couldn't switch a light on, let alone a football 40 yards. You know what I mean? Sometimes, and then I watch him for England as well, and I'm there like, what is this? I think Rice is, I wouldn't say lucky, but he's got something on his side, and that is that England don't have many defensive holding midfielders, or ball winning midfielders. So he kind of fills a gap in that respect. So it'll be interesting to see in the next few years when you have potentially more of them coming through, because I think England are starting to produce more of them with the way that the game's going. Be interesting to see how he sort of deals with it, how, it'd be interesting to see the dynamic around that. I know he's been linked with Chelsea. Obviously there's a link there. Obviously he used to play for them and everything like that. So yeah, obviously he'll end up with one of his best mates there as well. But yeah, I think for Declan Rice, for me, it just screams like a bit of a best of a bad bunch. And I think he's massively overhyped by West Ham fans, like massively overhyped by West Ham fans. Like they think the sun shines out of his backside and all this nonsense. When actually he could. I know he's had more caps than Mark Noble. Who's never been capped by England at senior level.
Don't know how.
There's a reason for that. So yeah, but if things don't necessarily go to plan, I could see Declan Rice almost having a similar path career-wise to Mark Noble. Like, I'm not saying he's like a B-Tech version of Mark Noble, but there's a lot of similarities between the two. And again, that's probably why they very rarely played together. And not only that, but Mark Noble's not that great anyway. So yeah, I think that's why Rice is in there, because like I say, he just sort of screams that best of a bad bunch. I think there's better than him certainly in the league. And I think because he's English and kind of fills a hole in the dynamic of the England team, the England setup, I think that's sort of why he's got to where he has, really. But yeah, again, I don't necessarily see the hype with Declan Rice.
I hear that. That's interesting. And I'm leaning towards him now, because I don't know why I didn't even consider him in the first place, but I agree with the fact that, he's been overhyped a lot. And yeah, he's not, like, as a defensive midfielder, you're not expecting anything flashy, but I don't think there's anything that, I think you've justified it pretty well. Roger as well, you've justified him very good. Like you said, the fact that you've got to play Fernandinho alongside him is a question mark, a bit sus. But I mean, I'm going to leave it down to you. It's an interesting one. I mean, you got.
I'm gonna go with Rodri. I'm gonna go with Rodri. Yeah, because I think there's more question marks, I think, over Rodri than there is over Declan Rice. But again, I think Rice is overhyped a lot by West Ham fans and the media because he's English and he plugs a gap. But I'm going to lean towards Rodri because I think, like I say, there's a lot more question marks over him than Declan Rice.
Cool. Well, we'll go with Rodri.
Nels, who's in one of your midfield positions? I don't want to say one of a midfield three because it might be a midfield two, depending on how you're lining up further up the top end of the pitch.
I've got my wing backs, so I've gone for a midfield two.
Okay.
My first, I don't want to. There's a lot of people that are going to be shocked by this one. I'm going to go for it.
Go.
I think you might have had him because I remember I had Rodri as well as one of my selections.
Okay.
But this guy I have right now, Paul Labille Pogba.
Okay, disclaimer, I didn't have him. Just going to throw that out.
You didn't have him?
No. He's just, I wouldn't even call him overrated to me. I just think he's awful. So that's why I didn't have him.
Okay. Fair enough. I think because United fans are still holding on to that talent that he has. I remember watching a podcast called Filthy Fellas, which has the likes of Poet. I don't know if you Poet, Specs Gonzalez. There's a number of them that watch their football as well, and they had to rank the top 10 best midfielders in the league. So Kevin De Bruyne was number one. But based on pure ability alone, Paul Pogba was second. And I was like, what? Like, why are you just basing it on pure talent alone? Like, okay, fair enough. We know his ability and what his ceiling could be. But I'm sorry. He's flopped at United. He's flopped. And I was really hyped for him moving to United. And we're talking overrated, overhyped to the point where my man done a video with none other than Big Mike Stormzy. The hype was there. Everyone thought, like this was gonna be the next big thing. Like he left, did his thing at Juve. You can even argue that he was overrated at Juve because that midfield, people are forgetting that midfield three he was a part of. Pirlo, Marchisio, like he was on the left, so he was able to do all the attacking duties, but he hasn't fulfilled his price tag since he's joined United. People still hold on to the fact of his ability. I think just look past it now. He's not produced. He's not reproduced. You could argue that one good season he potentially had was the season that Mourinho was there and he had Zlatan in the team. Like, they seem to work well in tandem together. We know one of his best qualities, which you like to say, is, put a ball on a plate for a player. Like, his long ball distribution, he's able to produce that. He done it against you lot when you played at Wembley, Marcus Rashford, swerve on the... He's capable of producing that. We know that, but I'm sorry, he's been overrated for too long in terms of like, he can do this, he can do this, he can do that, he can do that. Like, he's not been able to do it on a consistent basis for United since he's joined. So if you're shocked, I don't care. He's overrated. Paul Pogba is in my squad. And one of my brothers as well is a big Paul Pogba fan. So I put him in there. And he argued that his situation is delicate just because, he may have not been used in his best position on the left of that midfield three. But I don't care. You're here to come. You got paid. Do your team. You didn't do it. You're over it. I'm sorry. Right. So he's in my squad. Paul Pogba. First set of mid.
Yeah, I can't really argue with that. I think one of the big things is that, you mentioned we know his talent. Well, do we? Because we've not. I've not seen it. Like, legit, I can think of two good balls that he's played, and they were both against Tottenham. But that's literally like it. Like one over for Marcus Rashford, and then one in our game. I think one of our first games back for Project Restart. But I don't see. Other than that, I don't know what else he kind of does. And I think one of the big points that gets spoken about a lot is whenever his name gets mentioned with regards to United or a manager or anything like that, it's can they get the best out of Paul Pogba? Not can Paul Pogba get the best out of himself or get the best out of, for the team. It's always, can a manager get the best out of Paul Pogba? Well, if that's the case, I mean, you've had it similarly with Mesut Ozil. You know, eventually there's got to be some responsibility on the player to actually turn up and deliver. I don't think Pogba's done that at all. He wasn't even like close for me because I just don't see it. Like I said, I just think he's awful. You know, it's now at United, it's can Pogba and Bruno Fernandes play together? Well, I'm sorry, but good players can play together. They find a way. You know, I think it's quite interesting now that Ole is using Paul Pogba as almost like a left winger, but tucking in a lot. Because you mentioned there about playing on the left in a 3 sort of midfield. Ole's experimented with that, hasn't worked. So yeah, I agree with you in the sense that we haven't seen anything from Paul Pogba in his time at United. It's been a disaster. And for me, if I'm a United fan and he wants to go, yeah, fine. See you later. I think they'll get someone else in who's probably perhaps slightly younger, but a bit more hungrier. And actually wants to be at Man United. So yeah, I think for me, it would almost, if he went, it would be a good riddance kind of thing. Because I think he's been a problem ever since he turned up.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know if it was a thing for Mourinho, but as soon as he could, he got in the Nemanja Matic to kind of supplement Pogba. You know, so like I say, it's always been about the managers that United have had. Can they get the best out of Pogba? Whereas, how about Pogba getting the best out of himself and doing the best for Man United?
100%.
So yeah, I'm kind of I'm more than happy for you to have Paul Pogba in there. that is for sure. That is for
cool.
sure.
Who have you got as your other midfielder then?
Next up is I got 2 options here. One is a United teammate of Paul Pogba's in Fred.
Yeah.
And the other one is Naby Keita.
Yes. I'll let you go through. Go on.
So Fred came with this big reputation. Don't know what that was, to be honest. Yeah, not seen it at all. Don't know what type of midfielder he is. Is he a playmaker? No, he couldn't make a drink, let alone a bit of play. Do you know what I mean? You know, is he a ball-winning midfielder? Well, if he is, he's awful because he's so rash in a tackle. It's crazy. You know, if anybody wants proof of that, just look at the PSG game in the Champions League. You know, this season. Is he box to box? Not really.
No.
Yeah, I just don't see it. Again, I just don't see it with Fred. So, but again, I think he had a spell where United fans kind of gripped onto it and were like, "Oh my god, he's this, he's this, he's this." He's doing his job essentially. Like, I don't know if fans kind of get hyped over like players doing their jobs essentially. But yeah, I've just not seen it with Fred. I think he gets pulled out of position way too easily as well. And yeah, I just think he's massively sort of overrated. Again, I could probably pick a good handful of players in the league that are better than Fred. So that's why he's in there. Naby Keita. Now this one's interesting because he was in my 11 early doors. But having sort of thought about it, I'm there like, I've actually seen Naby Keita. Like, he comes through like Santa, I think, once a year. And that's literally it. Like, he's got like the Eric Lamela virus or something. Do you know what I mean? Comes through like for a little spell and then you don't see him. But again, come with a massive reputation of being, you know, this creative style of midfielder. Yet to see it. Again, yet to see it. I know he's had a lot of injuries, so that's probably why I'm yet to see it. But you know, I think in that Liverpool setup as well, like, is he a Henderson or Fabinho type of midfield player? No. Is he a Wijnaldum type of midfield player? No. They've brought Thiago in for a reason. Obviously, they don't trust Naby Keita enough. Curtis Jones has broke through. Again, sort of similar type of player, but Curtis Jones is getting in ahead of Naby Keita at the minute. But Liverpool fans will tell you that he still needs time to adjust. Well, hurry up, because do you know what I mean? Some of us are waiting here to kind of see what the hype's all about. But yeah, just again, yet to see it with Naby Keita really. Yeah, like I say, came through, was supposed to be a similar style of player to Thiago, but I don't think he is at all. I don't think he could even last 90 minutes or whatever. So yeah, Naby Keita's in there for me.
Interesting one. Oh, yeah, Keita came with that reputation. He hasn't delivered. I think he was a good player at Leipzig. Nothing better than good. Just a good player at Leipzig. But like you said, he hasn't been able to reproduce. And all those people you named that have been brought in or come up from the academy, like Curtis Jones, I think his time is running out at the club. You could even put Minamino in there in that centre mid, and he could probably do a better job. And Minamino was brought as a backup for Bobby for me. So yeah, it's looking. I think it's time at Liverpool's up, in my opinion. You can even have Oxlade-Chamberlain there, who does a better shift than Naby Keita. So it seems like Klopp hasn't been able. You could argue like it's the same with Paul Pogba. Like, has Klopp got the best out of Keita? But then you've got to look at Keita, and he hasn't taken the responsibility to justify his price tag. So I'm leaning more towards Keita. Who was the other iteration you mentioned?
It was Fred.
Was it another one that you mentioned?
It was
in that
Fred,
midfield, or was it just Keita?
Keita and Fred from Man United. Sorry, Nelson, we lost you for a minute there. Yeah, so the other player was Fred in there along. It was either Fred or Naby Keita.
I say go for Keita, in my opinion, but it's your team.
It is. So I'm gonna go with Fred, just because I've not seen too much of Naby Keita to really sort of pass judgment, but I know that he's been hyped up a lot, and yet I'm just struggling to think like what for. But I've seen enough of Fred to know that he's awful and he's overrated. So yeah, I'm just going to pick Fred ahead of Naby Keita, but that one was certainly a close one. Who then is in your second central midfield slot?
Okay, I'm going to leave Keita out because he was actually on my subs bench. Because I think he was actually on my bench. The fact that I put him on a sub bench means I don't even trust him to lead my overrated exercise. So I'm gonna put somebody who I think it's another surprise selection that I think many people might consider why I chose him. But just like I put Callum Hudson-Odoi in, I think this person's time at Chelsea, I don't think he's been able to fulfill his career, and he's had 2 stints at other London clubs and hasn't. I don't know how. Personally, I don't know how he's got 10 England caps, but that's Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Like, I'm sorry, Loftus-Cheek for me, he's 24. Like with Callum Hudson-Odoi, he had age on his side. Now you can argue the same thing, yes, with Ruben Loftus-Cheek, but like again, like he made a string of, I'd say, good performances, not amazing performances. But I know Chelsea, like this is on the basis of Chelsea fans overrating him a lot, saying that yeah, he's going to slot into that midfield and become the next. I wouldn't say next heir, but just be there for like for years to come, like the core group of young players. But he hasn't been able to do that. For the fact that Chelsea have had to send him out twice on loan, I think proves that Lampard doesn't see him in his future plans. Again, 10 England caps? I don't know. You tell me, Wes. You tell me how. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm actually baffled as to why he's I think he's championship quality. That's my opinion. I think he's championship quality. He hasn't proven enough to me. Everyone else will have opinions, but he hasn't proven enough to me. Like, I don't think he's proven enough to justify why he should play for England. Like if Fulham go down, I'm sorry, go down with them. Like, get your career back on track. Like, come back up whenever you're ready. Like, you can still make it, but I'm sorry, I have no ratings for Ruben Loftus-Cheek. And it's a sticky one because I like the brother. He's a good guy. But I just can't see him. I can't see him getting back into that Chelsea squad. I can't. I feel like his time is slim. I think Lampard's essentially going to sell him. But the crazy thing is, if you look at Chelsea's midfield, you could argue that he could make it in there with the fact that Jorginho isn't trusted as much. Kovacic is on a slight run of form. I mean, not slight run of form, like going, up and down every now and then. And you could argue that this is one of Kante's worst ever seasons. So how is he not in the squad? Like, you tell me, and Chelsea fans were overrating him. Like, I don't know, man. But he is my other centre-back pairing to go with Pogba as well. Like, tall, big lads, could do a bit of physical work in there for my team, but, again, I thought some people might think I've had a howler, but I'm sticking with this team, man. I'm sticking with this four. Go on. There's a few things I know you want to say. Go on.
Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I am with you. I like Ruben Loftus-Cheek, right? I think his loan spell at Palace, I thought he was brilliant. I thought he was absolutely excellent. And he was probably, 20, 21? You're going in there, struggle inside, and you're asked to play in a position that you've probably never played in before, because he was playing out on the wing. Now, Loftus-Cheek strikes me as a player that sort of growing up has played centrally a lot. So whether that be conventional number 4, 8, or a number 10, I still think he has the capability probably to be an 8 or a 10. But yeah, when you I know he's had injuries and stuff like that, like big injuries. But when you look at it now, like you said, he's 24 now. Like, come on, almost sort your life out, basically. But yeah, I do like Loftus-Cheek. I think, like I say, his loan spell at Palace, I thought he was fantastic. I actually even said to my dad at the time, I would love him in a Spurs shirt. I think, imagine Moussa Dembele was the greatest of all time. Was on his way out, and then you replace him with Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Like, I think he's got so much ability. Like, he can do so much. It's just a case of, is he going to fulfill it?
Exactly.
That's the question mark.
That's the question mark. And
yeah, because of his age, 24, you're kind of thinking, it could be a case of what could have been Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and that's a shame, because I think, like I say, he has got so much talent, and a player that I really, really like. But I just think it will be a case of what could have been.
That's a shame. Like, I don't want to stress the people out there. I'm not saying that he's a dead footballer. He's a very good footballer, but I just think he's been overrated in the sense that, with his ability, there's been a ceiling. And right now, at 24 years of age, I think he should be cementing himself in that Chelsea midfield. But if you're getting beat by the like of an aging Jorginho, a Kovacic who's maybe homesick, you never know. With these, and then you got a Kante who's having a World Cup winner having one of his worst seasons, and you're not able to get into that midfield, then I don't know. We've talked about players taking on responsibility and trying to, get themselves out there. I don't think he's done that right now. His time at Chelsea, and I'm worried that, like you said, it could be a case of what could have been. He's just happy with his status of being a Chelsea player and will have his fair share of loans, just like Michy Batshuayi. I think Batshuayi is so comfortable at Chelsea right now because
he's chilling.
He is chilling. His status, like, people be like, yeah, I play for Chelsea. But then the girl goes to find on the transfer market, oh no, I think you're at Palace, mate. Like, there's a bit of a confusion. So I think right now I'm worried that I don't want Loftus-Cheek to head in that direction, but right now that's where it seems like he's heading. Yeah. That's why I put him in my squad in terms of just being overrated and not fulfilling. But yeah, that feels like my front, and that was a tough one for the midfield because I didn't want to put him in there. My other options were Rodri, Ceballos, as an Arsenal fan, and Naby Keita. So, I think Ceballos now, I'm just thinking about it, is just not even overrated. It's just, he's just not a good footballer. But, cool. I'm going to stick with that midfield. I guess you got another position to fill in.
I've got one more central midfielder. It's actually a teammate of Ruben Loftus-Cheek, a Chelsea teammate that is. Now, this particular player, I must admit, gets a load of abuse on social media. Yeah. Been dubbed Gareth Southgate's love child and all of this. So I've probably given it away there, but it is Mason Mount.
I forgot about him. Yeah, he was close. Go on.
Yeah, I just do not see it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. In some players, you kind of want to see it. Want to see young English players coming through and doing well. But yeah, Mason Mount, I think, I just don't see it. I think, when you look at that sort of 8-10-ish sort of position, that creative midfielder type, England have got a lot of players there. You've got Maddison, for me, really, really good footballer. Dele Alli, I know he's not having the best of times at the minute, but he's still got it. Dele, you've got Jack Grealish, Certi, baller. And I've had my reservations on Jack for a little while. I've even come on record and said that Grealish should have probably picked Ireland over England because he would be a god in Ireland for the things like his ability. Like he would have literally carried the Ireland national team. So I've had my reservations on Grealish, but he's coming good. So credit where credit is due. But then you've got, Phil Foden, who's just top drawer. Like Phil Foden is top drawer. Mason Mount is bottom drawer. But Mason Mount just strikes me as that kind of boy next door kind of thing where, if you had a daughter, for example, they brought Mason Mount home, you'd be like, well, give him a chance. You're not really gonna, he seems like a nice lad, if that makes sense. But I think like as a footballer, I just think he's massively overrated. People like, obviously with my Tottenham connections and being from Milton Keynes, obviously I'm always going to stick up for my guy Dele, but people have the audacity to put these two in the same bracket. Like, are you dumb? Dumb, bruv. Are you dumb? Like, I'm just not having it with Mason Mount. Like I said, just don't see sort of what he does. That's sort of it. I can't really put it any more than that. Like, but he's got to where he's got to, like, in his career. But again, is he a box-to-box kind of midfielder? Is he a goal-scoring midfielder? Is he a creative number 10? I don't know. I know he's bloody annoying because he keeps popping up in these little, in these England squads and playing ahead of your Grealishes and your Maddisons and Fodens and players like that. And I'm just there like, how? Like, why? What do these people see in him that perhaps I don't see? People talk about work rate and off the ball stuff and things like that. Well, for me, that as a footballer, that's kind of like a given that you work hard and you do certain things off the ball. But yeah, Mason Mount, just don't see it. I think he's massively overrated. Probably could be the captain of this team. That's that for me. So yeah, my midfield three, I've gone with Rodri, Fred, and Mason Mount.
Mason Mount, cool. It's not a bad midfield three. I'm trying to think if it would beat my 4 midfield, but they're overrated anyway. So we'll see.
Right then, Nels, one of
Cool.
your attackers.
My front three.
Yeah, hit me with it.
Yeah, I'm going to start front three. I'm going to go on the right. This person was already the first name on the team sheet, and it hurts to say this because I'm an Arsenal fan, but I think we're going with where we're going, and that's Nicolas Pepe. He's overrated. Nicolas Pepe is overrated. Right now, he's on the verge of being a flop. It is sad in this day and age where we look at the price tag and that's it. That's all we judge him on. We don't consider time. The fact that he's moved into a new country, new language barriers, different league, a different pace. Everyone's put that out the window. But at the end of the day, we've bought him for £72 million. And that means you expect, just like with Pogba, nearly £90 million, you expect that, production in goal contributions, whether it's goals and assists. I think when he initially signed for us, I think he was second in all top 5 leagues for goal contributions behind the one and only Messi, which we consider the GOAT. Obviously for you, that's Dembele. But, what's it called? Like, he was second in goal contributions, which was, but then obviously, like I mentioned, the league. The league is Liga is different to the Premier League. And there have been a couple of Liga players that have come over to the Premier League and I'm trying to think of one for an example, but it's not helping my case, that have taken the league by storm. But he hasn't reproduced his form at Lille, here at Arsenal. He's shown flashes of brilliance, and I think people have seen that. He scored some ridiculous goals, like for Arsenal. Like we're talking curling one of the top bins. We're talking that right foot he scored in the Europa League, and I've been there to watch everything. And I was lucky enough to work at Arsenal for a period of time, and like Arsenal fans seem to rise every time he had the ball to his feet, just because he was the only player in a really dull Arsenal side at the time when Arteta came in that would try and create something out of nothing with his dribbling ability. But that's all you could mention regarding, that's it, dribbling. You're not banging in goals, mate. I'm sorry. I'm an Arsenal fan. I want him to bang in goals, but he's not scored. I just think it's the lack of reproduction of form that he's not been able to do. And another fact, the fact that we've bought him for 72 million and the person who was responsible for that transfer has now been sacked by the club because they went into investigation of why we paid £72 million in the first place, shows that we overrated him. Don't forget, we chose Zaha. We chose him over Zaha. I would have taken Zaha any day because Zaha's Premier League proven. And I think Zaha wanted that jump in his career. But we chose Pepe. And I think we play Palace at some point this week. So he may shut me up and score a goal or two. I don't know. But he hasn't produced his form, man. And it hurts me to say this because it's less than 2 seasons. And I'm already saying this. But I don't think I have the time to be patient because you've got Saka who's come in and doing bits already. You've got Reece Nelson who does better cameo appearances than him, You've also got Gabriel Martinelli, who fans have been calling for him to come back. You see on Twitter, everyone's saying, Martinelli's back, our saviour. Like, we're taking that over our £72 million signing. Yeah, I'm sorry, you're done for. You're out. You're out of the club, bro. I'm sorry. You're out. But that's him. I've gone right wing. I don't know I don't think you have any thoughts, just because I think you agree with me. But
yeah, I do. I do agree because he was on my list as well. So yeah, luckily I have somebody else. And yeah, this particular player, I seriously do not see it, and I do not get it at all. Michail Antonio. This guy is one of the driest footballers, one of the driest Donnies, going. Like, real talk, he's awful. Like, he's so overrated. Like, he is. If you want to know, right, I know I said earlier about Declan Rice being the best of a bad bunch, right?
Yep.
At West Ham. Michail Antonio is literally West Ham's saviour. Like, go and open that door and let that sink in. Like, ridiculous. I went and saw him a few years ago in his Nottingham Forest days against Huddersfield, and he was horrific. Like, he was awful. Now, Forest lost that game, I believe, like 2-3-0 that day, and it was an awful day for Forest. Like, they didn't turn up at all. But Mikel Antonio was certainly like, he summed up that performance. That's how bad it was. I'm not putting him in here because he scored the first goal from a visiting player at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and that contributed to West Ham being the first team to win at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Not putting him in there for that at all. Just think he's massively overrated. Obviously, he come from semi-pro, but I half wish he'd stayed there because I think that's his level. Do you know what I mean? I think that's like, if somebody said to me like, right, where's Antonio kind of come from, and you go semi-pro, you kind of go, oh right, okay, like it's justifiable because he's overrated. I'm just trying to think if he's overrated now or just absolutely awful. But West Ham fans seem to love him, and again, I just can't see it with him. So yeah, that's why Mikel Antonio is in there for me. Because like I said, I don't particularly see it, but he's West Ham's saviour somehow. I don't know if he's just one of these annoying footballers that you just think, you are so bad, like you are so bad, right? But then he just turns up in these moments and you kind of go, oh, okay, well, Antonio scored or he's had a decent game today. But yeah, Antonio, for me, I just think he's massively overrated. Semi-pro footballer, he probably should have stayed there because I don't think he's much cop. So yeah, Mikel Antonio for me.
Cool. So that's your striker in the middle.
That's my right winger. Oh,
your right winger.
Yeah, cool. Put him out on the right because that's sort of where he came through. So Nelson, who's then next in your front line, in your front three?
I'm gonna go with my striker. I've got a surprise for you on my left wing, but I'm gonna go with my striker, and this brother has just been overrated from the start. Price tag, natural ability is meant to be ridiculous. Best one-on-one player. I've heard his fan base say to take people on one-on-one. He's devastating. We all remember the commentary. We thought Martin Tyler had an orgasm at one point where he scored his debut goal against Liverpool. Like, oh yes! Like, you know who I'm talking about. I'm going with Anthony Martial, the king of overrated. He's my captain, by the way, for my squad. He's my captain because this brother, and I know I've got some friends who are United fans, and if they watch this later on, they're not going to like my opinion, but he is, I think, 24, I think maybe even 25. He hasn't produced his, since he's come in. And I think from the moment, I think his price tag has made him like into this high profile player. And I think it's got to his head. And especially, I think his first season was okay. At that young age, you expect that kind of production at 18 years of age, not to bang over 20 goals a season. He was able to do, I think, at least 15. I think he's been hit. I think at one point, I argued that he was hit with confidence when Zlatan came and took the number 9 from him. And he was number 11. I think that must have hurt his confidence big time because you're seen as the next big thing. Zlatan comes in, and as Zlatan always says, it wasn't Zlatan that asked for you the number 9. United just gave it to him because that's Zlatan's aura, But that I think that definitely took a hit of confidence. But he's now had an opportunity since Zlatan's left to put himself back into the squad, establish himself as their number 9. Lukaku came, bounced. Then he had a shift on the wing. I just don't know. Unfortunately, he seems like another case of Theo Walcott. Is he a winger? Can he play up top? Is he on the right wing? Like, I just don't see it. And I think he's recently been reinstated back into the French squad. Don't know how, but I think it was probably on the back of his season. I think last season was his best goal scoring return in the Premier League. I think he's got 18 or 19. I think that's probably why Didier Deschamps called him up. But bro, he just hasn't been able to reproduce that form. I think Man United fans are still holding on to that goal he scored against Liverpool and saying that's who he is. Look at this baller. Look at this. I'm sorry, he's not a baller. He's not a baller. It's not that he's not a baller. He's got ability. I think he's got ability on the ball. He can do that, but I think he's very inconsistent. He's unreliable to play as your number 9 or even on the wing to produce consistent performances. I think that's why they're just being unreliable. I think you can't have that with that price tag that they brought you in for. He hasn't developed in terms of his career. We talk about his searing pace, which I think he has. I don't think he's used that to running behind defenders as well, like to develop his game and not just to be the person that he loves his ball to feet, but he can do so much more than that, I think, by using his off the ball stuff, but he hasn't. So he's my captain. Martin Tyler, thank you for that wonderful commentary, but I'm going to leave it at that. Oh no.
Another one who was in my considerations as well, Anthony Martial. I think there was a point where his only shot on target this season was hitting Eric Lamela in the penalty area in the 6-1. But yeah, completely agree with you. Again, don't get the hype on Martial. I don't think he's good enough to be a number 9, but then I don't think he would get in United's team anywhere else, because I don't think he'd play wide left, because I think Rashford's kind of made that slot his own. But yeah, again, everybody talks about his pace. I'm yet to see it. Do take your point about the confidence potentially being hit when Zlatan came in, took the number 9 off of him and whatnot. But as a professional footballer, you kind of just have to deal with that sort of thing and come back and stuff like that. Like, I don't think it's that big of a deal. So, but yeah, for me, Martial massively overrated. I think, as you said, people hang on to probably two things. It's the goal against Liverpool, as you mentioned, but then also one of his goals where I think it's dubbed like one of the coldest photos or something on Twitter. I'm not too sure if it's against Newcastle or a game in the Europa League. I think it might be Newcastle, where you've got like all the bodies on the floor and he's just kind of like there with his deadpan face that he always produces.
Yes, the deadpan face.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm with you on Martial. So I'll let you have Martial because I have another centre forward, one that has been capped by England a couple of times, and I don't know how either. Listen, this particular player had a very good loan spell in the Championship, and it prompted a Premier League club to then take him on loan as well, and that's Tammy Abraham. Man
like Tammy.
So overrated.
Cool.
So how okay. So as I mentioned, great loan spell in the Championship, Bristol City at 18 years of age. Smashed it, right? He then went to the Premier League with Swansea, had an indifferent season, difficult time, I think, at the club. A few different managers were in at that particular period as well, I believe. Then he gets another loan move. And then all of a sudden he ends up at Villa as well, on loan. And you're there going, okay, right, what's sort of next? I think he had like a 6-month spell, and then he sort of had almost like an 18-month loan at Aston Villa. In across sort of, it wasn't done as an 18-month loan, it was sort of a 6 months and then a 12 months. But you're kind of there going, okay, potentially a bit of a step back division wise, but you've proven in the Championship, so can you do it again? All right, you did score quite a few goals at Villa, but he's come in at Chelsea. I know it's different playing in the Championship for Aston Villa compared to being in the Premier League and being the number 9 at Chelsea, but like everybody's going on like, right, Tammy Abraham finally given his chance in the Premier League. Can he score goals? Mate, Olivier Giroud is Chelsea's top goal scorer still. Like, Giroud keeps, like, there's always rumours about him leaving and whatnot. Like, for me, Olivier Giroud should just be Chelsea's main centre forward. But how are you going to let a guy that keeps getting rumoured to leave every 5 minutes, like, just trump you in terms of the goal scoring charts? Like, I think his touch, oh my goodness, absolute pinball. It cannons off him half the time. Like, his second touch is a tackle most of the time. So yeah, I've just not seen the hype with Tammy at all. Just don't get it. He, for a big lad, he doesn't impose himself as a centre forward. I don't think his hold up play is too great, which then leaves where he's either got to be a poacher or one that plays on the shoulder. I don't think he plays on the shoulder too well. And I don't think he's a fox in the box sort of poacher. A bit like a Javier Hernandez or a Jermaine Defoe or, somebody like that. So then you're sort of, well, what kind of striker is he? Well, he's overrated. Yep. That's one. So, yeah, that's why Tammy's got the nod in there for me.
Cool.
You happy with that?
Aram. He was something that I did put, but I thought Martial just was the king. You just couldn't top him, man. Like, my guy was just there. So I've put him there. Okay, so I'm going to fill out my front three, the rest of my front three. Yeah. I've got, after hearing your pick, I'm now I'm in a dilemma between two people.
Dilemma like Lenny and Kelly. Let's go.
Exactly. So for the left wing to complete my front three, I've gone for two people. I'm considering Ferran Torres of Man City and your guy, Stevie Bernard.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Now, this is a tough one just because I think Ferran Torres has come in at City. He's bagged goals, but I haven't seen anything else. I think he was brought in to replace, obviously, Sane left and went to Bayern. I'm not sure how City... I don't know. He was one of the most important key members in that squad. There's back-to-back title-winning squads. I'm not sure how they sold a player of his quality. I get it. They bought Ferran Torres. La Liga, compared to the Premier League, is obviously less fast. It's not as fast. But I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm giving Ferran Torres the benefit of the doubt just because it's his first full season and his goals. I feel like his goals have papered the cracks. I don't even know if that's how you say the phrase, but
papered over the cracks. Yeah, Nels, we did lose you momentarily, so you may have to kind of just brush over again, sort of what you were saying.
No worries.
We did lose you for a sec.
No, I was just saying that Ferran Torres, I think his goals have papered over the cracks in some of his games. I think he hasn't been able to produce like the way Phil Foden has. And I think they're both of the same age. And Phil Foden's coming in there and just establishing him. Like he's telling Pep, he's screaming at Pep, start me every week. That game against Chelsea, he was scintillating a few days ago. I think for him, it's similar to like Gabriel Jesus. I'm not saying Gabriel Jesus is overrated, but when Gabriel Jesus first joined the club, I think City fans were on the hype that he could be the heir to Aguero, and Aguero just shut him up like, no, not today, rude boy. And I just think that Jesus now, he gets his goals in the low quality gains against, opposition that aren't of a high standard. Same with Ferran Torres. Like he scored, we expected City to win their Champions League group. I think he scored in every match day for them. But the quality of opposition compared to City is ridiculous. Like you'd expect him to bag. So I think he hasn't proven it for me yet. Your Stephen Bernway kid, like I think it's because of I don't want to compare him to Pepe, but it's just the fact that the way I see it is like Pepe's just brought this and Bernway has just brought this. Like there's not been any, both of them. That's why I've put both of them in tandem, like in terms of left wing and right wing. Because yes, we know that. You guys bought, I think, for 27 million, was it? I think it was about 27.
Yeah, so, not even half of what you paid for Pepe.
Exactly. But I just think as well, I don't know if Tottenham fans were expecting a lot from him. I don't think they were. But I was, because I saw him at PSV and I saw he was an absolute baller. So I thought, why not produce that form that you've done at PSV over here at Tottenham? But, we all remember the first goal. Don't get me wrong, it was a brilliant first goal to introduce yourself. But I haven't seen much since then. I'm being honest. I haven't seen much since then. I think I'm looking at his stats now. I had his stats ready from the moment we started this podcast. I was like, I need to pull this up. Like 3 goals, it says here. 20 he scored last season. Mm-hmm. It says here he hasn't scored a single Premier League goal this year. I may be wrong. Transfer market may be wrong. But I feel like with the way you guys are playing, I feel like you can argue that it's not benefiting him, the system you're playing with Mourinho there. I'm not dumb enough to, dismiss that. I feel like there's been an element of, him just being shunned out on the right, just working hard defensively, and it's running through Kane and Son pretty much. Because I'm sure he'd love to see Kane on the ball and be like, you know what, I'm gonna make a run in behind and do that. But I feel like Mourinho has told him I think he's given him a role to do, and I think he's just got to follow that at the moment. That's why it's a sticky one between him and Ferran Torres, because he came in obviously last January, didn't he, Stephen? So he hasn't had a lot to prove, I think, but I just don't think he's been able to reproduce. I don't know. I sound like I'm waffling now. I'm gonna just stop there because I'm gonna let you pick this one. I feel like you're gonna lean towards Torres because
this is difficult.
Because obviously, you actually think
this is hard. This is hard because, as you say, Ferran Torres has come in. I think he could turn out to be an absolute bargain. 20 million or however, in and around that figure. You got to think he's come in and still a fairly young player, having to adjust to, new league, language, dodgy weather, because Manchester weather's not like usual, as we can both testify to. But, he's been hoisted out of position a lot. And I think he's done all right. I wouldn't say he's done amazing. I don't think he's taken to playing that false nine like a duck to water necessarily, but I think he's done all right in there. Listen, it's clear, I think, that it doesn't suit him, but he's sort of doing a job for the team, and taking the team's needs over his own. And I think that can also be said for Steve Bergman. I'm like you. When he signed from PSV, I was buzzing because I was like, yes, he is a baller. Like, he's gonna give us something else, something different. Like, okay, potential backup for maybe Son on that left-hand side, because I still think that's probably Bergman's best position, coming in off the left and being devastating that way. Because I think, like, for me, we had like Lucas Moura and Lamela that played on the right. So, but yeah, I think the shift that he does again for the team, I think, goes unnoticed. But having said that, he does need to produce more in terms of goals and assists. I think his last goal, I think, was against United, for our first goal of Project Restart. I think his last assist, unless somebody wants to quote me on this, and let us know, was against Newcastle for one of Harry Kane's goals. But yeah, obviously I'd like to see more from Bergwijn, but I think the job that he's doing, he's kind of, sacrificing his ability going forward for the good of the team by his defensive work. So this one is, you're killing me here, because do I be harsh on Ferran Torres because he's just come over, or do I be harsh on Bergwijn because, he's kind of sacrificing himself for the likes of Kane and Son to sort of flourish? But I got to back my boy, I suppose. I got to back Stevie. So yeah, difficult one. But the only reason Ferran Torres, I can't not back Steve. I don't think he's overrated as such, but I think there's a few players that are in that danger zone.
I would say
I think Loftus-Cheek is in that danger zone. I think Bergwijn is getting close to it because he's not producing enough. So, but listen, there's plenty of other players I think that could have got in there.
That's true.
So, but yeah, Ferran Torres.
Cool, Ferran Torres.
Ferran Torres is my pick. I've actually got two that you haven't mentioned, so this is quite good. The first one came to prominence in the Premier League a good few years ago now, as an unknown. Turned out to be a bargain for the club that he signed for, and then they ended up selling him for a wham profit, like absolute wedge. And that is Richarlison.
Oh.
And then the second one is, a player, Nelson, that you know well, a player that comes with a lot, but necessarily doesn't always deliver a lot. Current captain of Arsenal,
You're joking.
Emerick
You're joking.
Aubameyang.
Oh
Okay, so
we both shocked each other. Jesus.
So Richarlison. Let me start on Richarlison. All right.
Just let you know, I'm backing my boy.
Just throwing it out there. Richarlison. As I said, came as an unknown to the Premier League, and proved to be a hit at Watford. Because he then got his big money move to Everton to rejoin Marco Silva. But I've watched Richarlison, and I would also put Zaha in this bracket, whereby these two are players that would produce in certain games, but not in others. And so they would produce against teams in the lower end of the Premier League table, and games that you would expect, for Richarlison, especially at Everton, or Zaha at Palace, you'd expect them to win those sorts of games, sort of teams in and around them. But then when it comes to, the bigger games where you want your main players to step up and perform, I'm yet to see it from Richarlison. And I think there was a spell where he was at Everton playing through the middle, did not suit him one iota. I think you sort of have to play him off the left in order to get the best out of him. But there was, massive talk of him going to Barcelona for like 100 million. Again, don't know where that came from, because I don't think he's produced it enough on a consistent basis over the period of time he's been in the Premier League. Now, he's been in the Premier League a good couple of years now. So I think he's got a good manager now in Ancelotti, one of the best, been there, seen it, done it, got the T-shirt, he's won everything pretty much in the game. But I think, again, there's still question marks over consistency with Richarlison. He's still very much up and down with his performance levels. And I get that sometimes players have inconsistencies, but then if you look at the job that between Ancelotti and Big Dunk at Everton have done with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, how, you can sort of see then how much work they are, willing to invest in their players. And obviously Calvert-Lewin is now, he's up there and he's in with England reckoning. When those squads come round. Richarlison, that's sort of why, again, sort of on a consistent basis. I get the same sort of vibes with Zaha. Does it against, the teams you expect Palace to sort of do well and pick up a result against. But when it comes up to those big games, I don't see it with him either. And Aubameyang, this will be fun. Pierre, I don't think he wants to come out here no more. Massively, massively overhyped by your lot. How you, man, want to come to the table and say he's better than Kane? No chance. No chance.
Whoa.
Not a chance. Not having it. And I think as well, like Aubameyang suits your fan base. He suits your fan base down to a ground, because he's got all the flash, he's got all the bling, all the fancy cars. He's got a little bit of the slang going on as well, and you lot just love it. But his job is to produce on the pitch. Now, okay, you can say that he has scored a lot of goals for Arsenal since he arrived, and his goal record since joining Arsenal is up there. Do not get me wrong, but in those crucial moments, those absolutely critical moments,
I know we're taking it. Taking it back.
He chokes on literally, and all those big moments where you've needed him to step up. Olympiacos Europa League misses a sitter. Brighton at home to get you close to getting into the top four misses a sitter. Penalty at Wembley misses against Tottenham, misses. You know, and actually, I remember Tottenham on Twitter posting the video of that, and it was quite cheeky because it was the same day as his birthday. So big up Tottenham's admin for that, I must say. So yeah, that's why Aubameyang kind of doesn't do it for me. Like, you know, take this season into account as well. Since he secured the ting, since he signed the ting, where's he gone? Missing. Yeah, he secured the 350 grand a week. There's a lesson to be learnt here from Arsenal. It's just do not give your players 350 grand a week because they go missing. It's as simple as that. Yeah, gone missing like mad. I think as well, it's embarrassing for Arsenal that he won your goal of the month for scoring a penalty against Man United. Like, that's embarrassing in itself.
It is.
And,
no defense on that.
And I think as well, again, this is more from an Arsenal thing, I feel, but to give somebody of like 31 a massive contract, I just do not see the point in it. Like, you're almost trying to build your team around somebody who's only got two years left. Like, what's the point? Yeah, I just don't kind of see it. Like, as well, I know he sort of started through the middle, but now he's played a lot on the left, which is why he's in consideration for my left wing spot.
Right.
I know it's kind of that Henry similarity where drift out to the left, cut inside, curl and shoot type of thing. Obviously, Henry had that on lock. I think Aubameyang, we know the password to get in, basically. So yeah, Aubameyang, I just don't see it. I think he, like I say, he's massively overhyped by you lot. He could have one good game against West Brom, and you lot will be, you know, off your rockers. But, you know, get him in a big game, get him in a massive game where it kind of means something and you need him to produce, and, you know, he's gone missing.
Interesting, because as much as I want to defend my boy, I've had my doubts over the contract extension that he signed in the summer. I think the reason why Arsenal potentially gave it to him is the fact that obviously on the back of that season he produced in terms of just scoring goals, I feel like he somewhat redeemed himself as a big game player, obviously in the FA Cup final. We needed him. He bagged 2 goals. He did it in the semi-final, bagged another 2 against City, which I thought we were going to be hammered by. Let's not forget, like, we were looking absolutely dreadful. Not sure how we were able to beat, I don't know. But he bagged 4 goals on our route to winning the FA Cup. Now, I could argue that in there in terms of big game play. But in his time at Arsenal, yes, you could. For me as an Arsenal fan, the big game player that I would see was Lacazette. Lacazette for me was the big game player. He scored against Chelsea, Spurs, United. He scored against, I think, all of the top 6. So he was someone that I would consider a big game player. I wouldn't really go to Aubameyang. I would probably shift over to Lacazette. I think the reason why Arsenal gave him that extension is because I think they've seen another aging forward in Jamie Vardy and how he's still producing goals at his age of 34 and still rapid. Like, I don't know how he's still rapid. I think his Red Bull still gives him wings. So they've seen that, and they think, okay, we can still give him that if he can produce like Jamie Vardy. But as we've seen this season, he's actually gone missing. I'm not defending him at all. I don't care if he's our captain. I'll make the big statement out there. He should have been sold last season. On the back of that season, with 22 goals, we could have got an enormous amount of profit for him and sold him on for maybe 60 million. Get even a profit on what we bought him for. I think he was worth that at that time. But we didn't. I think he's been persuaded by, like you said, the fan base, him being the captain. We know about his drippy style, all of that. Like, I think he's been persuaded that. And something has gone on this season, I think, personally with him. I don't know what's up, but it's another case of Ozil. And I hope that isn't the case as well. But apparently he seems to like what Arteta's doing. So I think that's why he stayed. But it's hard. I want to defend my boy, but there's also, you've mentioned good points in there. Like, he's come in and had a good goal record since he's come in at the squad. I think no one scored more goals than him. I hate that stat where they say no one scored more goals than you since you joined the Premier League or since you've done this. I don't get where this stat existed from. Like, nobody has assisted more than Mesut Ozil since he joined the league. I don't care. Like, it's just a bit annoying. But you mentioned Zaha as well, and you mentioned someone else.
Richarlison.
Richarlison's interesting because, he was really good at Watford. He was good at Watford. I don't know if it warranted a big move to Everton, though. I think that's why it's a bit... And I think Watford fans were finally happy that they had somebody with a bit of flair. When you think of Watford, you don't think of flair. I'm sorry. Like, you just don't think of that. But he came in and brought that. I think his manager, was it Rudy Garcia at the time? Or was it...
Marco Silva.
Oh, it was. My bad. But he came in, got the best out of Richarlison. The reason I'm giving him benefit of the doubt is because, like you said, he's with Ancelotti, and Ancelotti's done wonders with Calvert-Lewin. At one point, Calvert-Lewin, for me, I just didn't know where he was going. After that interview with Tubes on Soccer AM, I remember that. I was like, you're a dead baller. I don't know what you're doing.
And he still made the Emirates your dance floor as well.
He proved to me that he can still do it. Like, credit to him. Zaha, he's not a big game player. I mentioned that I probably would have preferred him over Pepe, but now the fact that you're considering him and Pepe's in my starting 11, I don't even know where I'm going with this anymore. But is there anybody that you're leaning towards more than the other?
I'm leaning towards Aubameyang.
It's your squad. I mean, for me,
it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. I think. Look, if I take the whole rivalry thing out of it, I don't think Aubameyang if the only reason Aubameyang warrants any kind of mention is probably this season. Yeah. But take that out of it, I think he's done a good job at Arsenal since he arrived. It's just that you lot just hype him up so much because he's got a bit of drip. And he doesn't mind a bit of slang every now and then. So, Arsenal fans just tag on to that. But I think as well, like with Aubameyang, I think, as I mentioned, it's more the stuff surrounding him, like the contract and all of that kind of thing. Richarlison, I mean, I've been to see him a couple of times, hasn't delivered. Same with Zaha, but you're going to these games and you're like, oh yeah, it'd be quite interesting to see how they play, how they get on. Obviously a lot of talk about them, and stuff like that. I'm gonna go for Wilf.
Cool.
Gonna go for Wilf. Like I say, the guy has got a different amount of ability. Like, he is different. He is definitely one that gets you off the edge of your seat, but it's only in certain times and in certain games where he wants to, basically. And not only as well, like, he is a bit of a hothead, Wilf. Like, he does he does switch pretty quick. So I don't think that goes in his favour either. But yeah, I think Richarlison ran Wilf pretty close.
Cool.
So yeah, Wilf. So my front three: Antonio, Tammy Abraham, and Wilfried Zaha.
Nice one. So we can do a recap of our teams, just to run through before we end.
Go for it.
So I'll read mine. 3-4-3 formation. Edison in goal. Michael Keane, Lindelof, Harry Maguire fills out my centre-back back three. The four in the middle, I've got right wing-back Ainsley Maitland-Niles. I've got Paul Labille Pogba, a.k.a. Stormzy's cousin. I've got, who did I put? I've got Ruben Loftus-Cheek, centre-back, centre midfield pairing. And I've put Callum Hudson-Odoi, Cho on the left wing-back. Up front, you got Anthony Martial, my captain of the squad, king of overratedness. I've got Nicola Pepe on the right wing, and by the saved by the bell, saved by Wes, Ferran Torres makes my left wing, and not Stevie Bone. So
Stevie Bergman, if you are watching this, Steve, I've done you a favour here. I've stuck up for you against an Arsenal fan. My team, obviously I had a few options. Believe I went for Aaron Ramsdale. It feels like a long time ago now. Aaron Ramsdale was my goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Back four, Matt Doherty or Roberto Carlos to his mates. In there, Tony Rudiger, because you went with Harry Maguire, Slaved, Tyrone Mings, and Benjamin Mendy. Cool. Complete my back four. A midfield three, then of Rodri, Fred, and Mason Mount. And then up top was Mikel Antonio, Tammy Abraham, and Wilfred Zaha. Nelson, who, if you had a manager in there, who would it be?
Interesting one, because I was about to ask you the same question.
Yeah.
If you're manager. I've gone with Chris Wilder.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've gone with Chris Wilder. I felt like it was difficult to put. It was between Chris Wilder and Arteta, my boy. Like I think Arteta is over. I don't know if people rated him, but I think people were overrating him on the fact that he was the prodigy, or not prodigy. What's the
Pep's
word?
Cone Boys. Pep's Cone Boys.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah. So there was that, but for him to do what he did and win us a trophy, I never expected a trophy when he first came in. I just wanted him to just do a solid job, but he's won us a trophy, so I just kind of backed him there. Chris Wilder overachievers. We all know Sheffield United overachieved. Like you were talking about Aaron Ramsdale earlier, and the fact that their run of form, the fact that Dean Henderson isn't in goal, and now Sheffield United on a terrible, horrific losing run. I think a lot of that also comes down to the manager himself. I think I think the fact that's why I think I even thought of Sean Dyche, but the fact at one point Burnley did overachieve, but Sean Dyche has still kept them in the league. And I think that's a testament to what he's been able to use with his resources. Chris Wilder is pretty much in the same situation as Sean Dyche, but hasn't been able to get the same level of production from the same group of players that he has. And I think he made a really shrewd signing in Rhian Brewster. I thought that was a very good signing. But again, he hasn't been able to produce. And I'm worried that they're going to do even worse than Derby. Have they still got a point from this? I think they still got a point. Or maybe two.
They've got two.
Yeah. And I'm worried. We're already at the halfway point of the season. And I'm worried that they're going to have less than Derby and have less than 11 points. And yeah. I know the general population don't look at coaches as much, but obviously I like to pay attention to coaches and, the way they manage and their strengths and weaknesses. And I think Chris Wilder is someone that I think, especially because he was English, we know how the English media love to hype their own people. So I just thought he was overrated in that sense, just because, especially the backing of the media, that he was considered a really good manager. Yeah, I think the season's kind of proven that. So who have you gone for?
I went for your underrated 11 manager, Graham Potter. Most overrated manager in the league, bar none.
Oh yeah,
you definitely went for Potter in the underrated 11, because mine was Ralph, I believe.
Oh, you did pick Ralph. Yeah, I did.
Ralph Hudson-Odoi. And yeah, you went with Graham Potter.
Yeah. Go on.
So yeah, I've gone with Graham Potter. I think he's massively overrated. Everybody talks about how much good football Brighton play. All right, they do play good football. Don't get me wrong, it's nice to watch, easy on the eye, but it hasn't really got Brighton anywhere. They had one league win in the calendar year of 2020. That was
against
awful.
Us.
Yeah, probably.
It was against us. Yeah, I remember.
That in itself is awful. Like I say, they've not really. When he came in, you're thinking, right, okay, great that we've got another young English coach or British coach in the Premier League, but they sacked Chris Hughton because they were almost fighting relegation. Yeah, they've brought Graham Potter in, and you think, right, change the playing style, see how we get on. But Brighton are still where they were when they sacked Chris Hughton. So for me, it was like, well, what's the point in sacking Chris Hughton? You know, he spent a lot of money on championship players as well. 22 to 24 million, I believe, on Morpay, 20 million on Webster as well. He spent quite a bit of money on Matt Clark as well. I think that was at least sort of 16 million, maybe, I think. But it was quite a lot considering I think they got him from Portsmouth. But he's been shipped out on loan to Derby the last sort of couple of times. And then he's brought in some like proper like unknown Donnies, like from some deep rural part of Europe or something, but somehow they like qualify to play for France or something, like, you know, one of them ones. Or, you know, Switzerland or something like that. And you think, well, why don't you either just bring someone through from your academy, like you have done with Aaron Connolly and Ben White are two examples, but you know, he's brought in some strange players, Graham Potter, and it hasn't worked out. Obviously, Lamptey is one that he has brought in for a bag of chips, basically, and you know, he could easily get a move for 20-30 million tomorrow. You know, strong rumours that Arsenal want him as well. But yeah, I just think by and large, I don't see the progression with Brighton. Which is strange considering not that long ago they changed their manager. So yeah, and like I say, the whole league wins in 2020 was the biggest shock for me. But he also looks like a bit of a supply PE teacher as well. You know, when your main PE teacher's like off sick or something, and you got to get a supply in, like he strikes me as that kind of guy. Graham Potter. So yeah, definitely overrated for me.
Great.
You happy with that?
Yeah, that fills both of our teams out.
Lovely.
I'm just interested to see who would win a football match between the two.
If only there was a way that we could try and make that happen one day. That would be brilliant.
Yeah,
that would be brilliant. Right then, guys, that is it for this particular episode. We hope you enjoyed listening. Apologies for any technical faults that happened during the podcast episode. So all that leaves me to do is thank Nelson for his contributions on his overrated 11. It was definitely overrated. Pardon the pun there. But also this is on YouTube, so make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment your thoughts in the comment section as well on any of our selections, and turn that notification bell on as well so you know every time that we post. Also, we are on Spotify, so please give us a follow on there at WM32Football, and that goes for all social media platforms as well, so Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and also our online shop is now live and direct, so if you would like to purchase any WM32 Football merch, a little bit similar to the polo that I'm wearing today, then please head over to the website www.wm32football.com/shop for any merch. Nelson, thank you ever so much for your time.
Thank you, Wes. Enjoy this episode. Hopefully back next week.
Yeah, we will see you guys very, very soon. Take care and stay safe, everybody.